Hey everybody, it's Dave here, and we are about to start Two Old Bloggers, where Darren and myself talk about your Minnesota Vikings, and this is the pregame show of the Vikings versus the Bears down in Soldier Field. Stick with us. After the roll-in, we'll get into it. Hey everybody, happy Saturday afternoon to you. And what makes today even greater is we got football on tonight as the NFL moves to the Saturday schedule. One of the games got moved to Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever it is, all because of COVID.
Tuesday, probably be a game Wednesday as well. Who the hell knows?
We'll figure it all out. There has not been a game on Wednesday though, ever.
No.
That's the one game they haven't. How you doing, Darren? How's things up north?
Good. I hear Brashad Breeland's moving up here.
Yeah, and get into that. Yes. Hey, Drew. Let's get into that. We'll flip on over.
Let's.
And just about 45 minutes ago, the Minnesota Vikings put out a little tweet. Looks like this. Vikings have waived quarterback Brashad Breeland. And Brashad answers via Instagram or whatever, and it was just wow, is what he wrote. The question is, does anybody know why?
Dave, I hear that you know why. I feel that there's going to be...
I mean, there's a couple things. One, he's talked about, he's told the fans on Twitter they can suck on his pickle or something to that effect. There's other things, but according to...
Wasn't quite that eloquent, but anyway.
Yes, according to Chris Thomason, he writes a tweet, a little over 30 minutes ago. It's been up and down year for Bashad Breeland. On and off the field, he was sued in a civil lawsuit for $15,070 back on October 6th by two other residents of the Minneapolis apartment complex. He allegedly continually, and his guests continually, have been smoking cannabis in violation of a smoking addendum.
I wonder if Holton Hill was there with him.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. But obviously, Bashad Breeland is no longer a starting corner on your Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, that tweet from Thomason makes sense to me, because when maybe you felt the same way when that came out. We know Breeland has been up and down, more down than up this year. He's not been a popular guy with fans on the social media side of things, with that sort of a thing, and not that teams care a whole lot about how bad you are on social media if you're playing well, but
Exactly.
that just added, he wasn't playing well, so added a bit of fuel to the fire. He has had some good games, so I'd want to be fair about that, but I just really felt that if this was performance related, it's an odd time of the year to cut your starting corner, like with 4 games left in the season on a playoff push. Even if he's been playing bad, he's a veteran. They hadn't benched him. They put up with him all the previous 13 games through his ups and downs. I really felt that this had to be some sort of off the field issue that was going on with him for them to cut him now, especially when you look at who's going to come in to replace him. The Vikings do not have a whole lot of depth at corner right now. So that tweet makes a lot of sense, and not great timing.
I don't even know if that's the reason. I'm betting it's something that happened when it first came out, and I started to inquire. I'm saying, did something happen last night or yesterday? That's back in October, right? They had to have known about that for a long time. You would think somebody in the office knows, hey, one of our guys ended up on a court blotter. But they've got to, something happened. We'll get more of the story as it works its way out, I'm sure, throughout the week. But
if it is not performance related, yes, the more will come out on that, and we'll learn a bit more about what happened. Certainly, we're not going to find out from the Vikings the real reason why they cut him. If it's an off the field issue, they'll just wordsmith it up and get the PR guy to come up with some holding lines and key messages, and away they'll go.
Well, Zimmer even had a press conference 2-3 hours ago today, and he was asked, Bashad Breeland wasn't on practice today. And Zimmer said, it's not injury related. And it wasn't until afterwards that the Vikings went, gone, see ya.
Well, that's right. Yeah, they're not gonna send out that tweet before coach availability with the media. That's going to happen afterwards. It'll be the thing is, Raymond and Wayne on here, but based on how the Zimmer handled in the Thursday night game, you remember when Breeland went out with an illness, and that's kind of the weird thing with Breeland is there was 2 games this year where he was out halfway through the game because he was sick. Like, I don't know what the hell that guy eats before games.
And he was throwing up on one of them. He was throwing up on the sideline in a garbage can.
He better get a new chef. But anyway, I when you last in that Steelers game, Zimmer went with, when Breeland went out, he put Boyd in the game instead of Cameron Dantzler, which I thought was interesting. And then when Boyd did that dumbass taunting thing after he made a nice play, then Zimmer put in Dantzler, but he didn't leave Dantzler in there very long. That leads me to believe that on Monday night against the Bears, it's going to be Patrick Peterson and Chris Boyd as your 2 starting corners, and not Dantzler, even though Dantzler's a far better. Even though Dantzler is a far better corner than Chris Boyd is, in my opinion. And but Dantzler just keeps on ending in and out of Zimmer's doghouse for whatever reason.
Well, and I do. There's a lot of things I like about Boyd in this game, and there's things I like about.
What are those things?
Well, every once in a while he's decent. It's just, but then he does the bonehead shit like last week.
Yeah, well, in the Baltimore game, I think, which was the one where Boyd played when Breland was out, and that they did the stats on that one, and he was thrown at 12 times. The team completed 8 of them, and the other 4 that were not completed were either dropped by the receiver or were overthrows.
Okay.
And then against the Steelers game, he got burned. Now he didn't have bad. He had pretty good coverage on that one that James Washington caught. Washington out leaped him and got a simultaneous catch. But then there was the PI as well, and I don't know. But if he's in there, he's in there.
And obviously, whatever Breland did is so bad that they're going with Boyd or Dantzler, either one.
So. Yep.
All right, let's get
Next
into
man up. Moving on.
Normal stats for today. We'll start out with the offense. The Vikings offense has actually dropped down a couple spots. PFF, they stayed the same at 11. Football Outsiders, they dropped a little bit there at 11. And if you get to Elias, you'll see that we're up to 4th in yards. 7th in passing, dropped down a little bit. Went up to 10th in rushing, went up. Because last week we had a great rushing game.
Yes.
Passing wasn't the greatest.
Yeah.
And points were at 11th. So that's not too bad. We've taken 18 sacks. And keep that sack number in mind when we look at Chicago. And we're 3rd in giveaways with 10, which is the 3rd least.
But been ticking up a bit the past couple of weeks, though.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And then the Bears defense, PFF has them 30th overall. Football Outsiders 24th, so neither of them like them a whole lot. Football Outsiders likes their run defense a little bit better. But when you get to the Elias, the raw numbers, on yards, they're only 8th. In passing, they're 7th. Rushing, they can be run on according to them, 24th. Points, 24th. They're 4th in sack production, and they're 29th. And turnover, making turnover.
Generated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Turnovers generated, yeah.
Now to flipping the sides of the field, our defense is down slightly per PFF. Their offense is worse than our defense at 22. Then we go 19, down slightly for Football Outsiders. Pass and run are about the same. And then we have their 26th on offense for DVOA, which didn't move over the week. They're 27th on pass, 19th on the run. We'll talk about the run in here in just a bit. And then we get to yards, our Elias, the bulk stats. As you can see, yard-wise, our defense hasn't been that good this season.
It's very polite way of putting it.
It's not a top 5 defense. Sorry, Mike. And you can look, we're pretty consistent. The only one thing that has stayed true most of the season, we're number 1 in sacks. We have 41. 5 last week helped. I was wondering, there was a hot take on Luke Broad's show that somebody said we're going to get 10 sacks on Monday night. Hey, I'd love to see it. I don't think we're going to get that many, but I would like to get, 3, 4, 5. That would be nice. And then we're 17th at generating turnovers. We generated 16 of them. Now, over on the other side, the Bears offense, 22, 26, right? Not good. Neither the advanced stats. Then we get into Elias, and they basically suck. 31 yards, 32 passing, 7th rushing. We'll talk about that. 28th on points, not good. They've given up 42 sacks this season. 42.
That's a lot.
41. That's where somebody's thinking we might have a big sack game. And they've given away 22
turning the ball over a lot.
Balls. Yeah. So that's them. Now when we get to special teams, we're 6. We dropped 1 spot. they're third. They jumped from like 10th to third or something like that. And it's all because of Santos.
Yeah, but amazing what a
And a punt return.
97-yard punt return will do for you, I guess.
Yep, exactly. Now, looking at the injury reports. This I checked this morning. All right, this may have changed. They may have updated it since, but I checked this morning. I'm not putting outs or questionables because we don't know yet. That probably won't come out till tomorrow, or maybe even out today. But as of this morning, our injury report was actually pretty good. Thielen was a DNP, and then limited practices for Darren and Kendricks. I expect both of those two individuals to play. From what I'm hearing, Darren is back on the field doing just about everything. Kendricks, he's sore back. He's dealt with that before. Thielen, they're hoping Thielen will get in, but a high ankle sprain, we all know, can take 3 to 4 weeks.
And generally, if these guys don't practice at all in the 3, then they're almost never play. And he's been a DNP the first 2 days, and we'll find out more today. But it was not looking good.
Joseph, why did we trade Mike Hughes away? Injury issues.
Because he wasn't any good.
And he wasn't.
That's why.
And he
hasn't been very good in
KC.
in Kansas City either.
Now he's made some.
Had a couple of good games lately. But he was the only thing he was doing until Snead went out because his brother died was he was returning punts. That's all he was doing for Kansas City before the last 2 weeks. So I don't know. To me, when people say, why didn't we keep Mike Hughes? Well, I would have kept him too, just because of depth reasons, and why the hell not? And the fact that we traded him and got like a 6th or a 5th, but we got a 6th, but we traded Hughes in a 7th, or how that all worked. It didn't. Yeah, it didn't. I wasn't all that.
Again, looks poorly on the first round picks of late.
Yep.
Getting into the Bears, there's some names on here. Marquise Goodwin, wide receiver, one of their starters, DNP. You got Jason Peters, also a starter, lineman, DNP.
He's been ruled out.
Has he? Okay,
yeah,
that's good.
Ruled out for the game.
Then as Drew stated just a bit ago, he wouldn't break his heart. It wouldn't break his heart if Raquan Smith, who is limited, gets ruled out there at the end as well.
Nice little comment down there about Breland.
After a verbal altercation today at practice with the coaches, took off his cleats, got into it with multiple teammates who were trying to calm the situation. That would do it. That would greatly do it. Thank you, Steve.
Especially when you're not playing well.
Mm-hmm. Wayne says,
I'm thinking if Justin Jefferson had done that, he'd still be on the team. But
yes. All right, now that's the injury report. We know
take us
there's
about 20
something
minutes.
else in play this week across the NFL.
It's going to take us about 20 minutes to get through this COVID report.
Over 150 players have come down with COVID this week. They've had to move, 3 football games already? Another one to Monday and 2 to Tuesday because of it, because the league the Players Association doesn't want to forfeit games because they lose game checks. Everybody's screaming. It's the Omicron, which has very little or no symptoms, and blah, 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 blah. So we get to the COVID report. I checked this as of this morning. And here's your COVID report. Both teams. Danielle Hunter's on it for us, which we all went, whoa, they stuck Danielle Hunter on it. I thought he was on IR. He still is on IR, but he's now on both.
Still part of the team.
Yeah. The big ones for us is Alexander Madison. Kene Wangu will be backing up Dalvin Cook this weekend. Dan Chisna, the special teams ace, is out. And other than that, D.D. Westbrook, I wouldn't call, he's a backup wide receiver, he's punt returner, but okay.
He's our main punt returner.
Yeah. On their side, there's also quite a few here. Allen Robinson, another starting wide receiver, is out. That's a biggie. I'm trying to remember who else is there besides Andy Dalton, but we're going to see Justin
Well,
Fields.
there's a few, right? Like Artie Burns, Eddie Goldman, Mario Edwards Jr., and Eddie Jackson. Those are all guys that either starters or key rotational guys for the Bears defense. So if they're not playing, that's a lot of key contributors that they won't have for the Monday night game. On the other hand, Akeem Hicks, who hasn't been playing the past few weeks with an ankle injury, is not on the injury report, and he will be playing. And I would say that one Akeem Hicks is worth about 3 Eddie Goldmans because the Vikings have nobody who can block the guy when he's healthy and engaged. So that's a big plus for the Bears to get him back in the lineup. Akeem Hicks, great player, but I don't like seeing him when he's playing the Vikings because he's always living in our backfield when he plays against us.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, let's move on to our first topic. You wanted to talk about David Montgomery and that Chicago running game. Right here, I just
it was more.
We're going to see it. He's going to hand off and 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 hand off come Monday night. Now, Monday night, I looked at the weather forecast. Weather looks relatively
Thanks, Dave.
nice. It's
that is good.
The weather is right around freezing. It'll start a little bit above and get to right around 30 by end of game. There's about the wind will pick up to only about 10 miles an hour. To feel like temperature in the mid 20s Fahrenheit, of course. It's going to be pleasant. There's no big winds. There's no snow, no rain, no nothing. It's just a nice December evening in Chicago.
About as good as you could expect.
Well, tell us about David Montgomery.
David Montgomery, yes, Dave. I really like David Montgomery, but I don't like him when he plays against the Vikings. And the last 2 games in Minnesota that the Vikings lost to the Bears, he's rushed for well over 100 yards per game. And last year was, I think, he had a $145 and 2 TDs, along with over 30 carries. Montgomery's a kind of a guy. He's a running back who's kind of, at least his running style, I feel, is similar to Najee Harris, who the Vikings played Thursday night. Tough runner, great balance, breaks a ton of tackles, and generates a lot of yardage after contact. And last year in that game, against the Bears, the second last game of the year at home, he just broke tackle after tackle after tackle. The Vikings defense could not stop him. If they had kept him somewhat under wraps, the Vikings would have won that game quite easily, I think. But they couldn't stop him, and they have to make life difficult for David Montgomery. This year, if you look at his stats, you're like, oh, well, he's got 608 yards, 4 TDs, no biggie. Yeah, but he missed several games because of a knee injury, and he just came back, I think, 2 weeks ago. Didn't have a great game against the Packers on Sunday night, but then especially in the second half, the game kind of got away from the Bears. They couldn't really run the ball, but he's a guy that I think is going to give the Vikings run defense a lot of trouble because of the fact that you think you got him, but you really got to devote not just one tackler, but 2 tacklers, maybe 3 or 4, to bringing him down because he is so tough. He's got such great balance. He's so good at breaking tackles and gaining 3 or 4 or more extra yards after first contact. And if he is generating the kind of runs like he did in the last year's game at Vikings. Now remember, when the Vikings played at Soldier Field last year and won that game, Montgomery was out. He was not in the game. He did not play. He did play in the Minnesota game and absolutely killed us. If he is allowing the Bears run offense, and we saw the Elias stats, they're 7th ranked in rushing, I think basically because a lot of that has to do, Justin Fields helps that quite a bit too with his scrambling ability. And then the rookie Khalil Hebert, he ran pretty well when he was in for Montgomery as well, those 3 or 4 games. But really, the Bears offense, if they can run the ball effectively, that's really going to make it a lot easier, I think, for Justin Fields to be effective with the RPO and his ability to scramble and doing things to confuse the Vikings. The Vikings really have to get the Bears in obvious passing situations, and then they can turn up the pressure, do things to confuse Fields, and get him to maybe make 2 or 3 of those mistakes he's been making several times in this
in the
season.
game.
Yeah,
Okay.
in the
Well,
game.
we do have the core center should be there. Kendricks, like I said, the back injury limited. I fully expect him to play. Barr's there. You got both meaty boys up front, and you'll have Richardson on one side and Wanham on the other. So hopefully they can keep that run game contained and pushed forward. If they do that, I agree with you. Force Chicago to throw, because that's where they're pulling guys off the street to play wide receiver, and it's by all means that would put us in the best of situations. But this is the Minnesota Vikings. We know how these games go, right?
We sure do. And last week against the Steelers, the Vikings defense, well, overall, it was outstanding for 3 quarters, but they did probably as good a job on run defense those first 3 quarters as I've seen them do all year. Now, again, the Steelers' run offense has not been very good all year, but they really bottled up Harris. He got very little. They stopped him for a few tackles for a loss, which is almost unheard of from this defense this year. And then when the Steelers got back in the game later on in the second half, it felt like the Vikings run defense stopped doing some of the things that it did very well in the first half. They lost that. Like that, they didn't set a very good edge. Later on in the game, they lost containment, and Harris was starting in the middle and then making a quick cut, busting it outside, and we didn't have a linebacker or a defensive end there to turn him back inside. And that's the kind of thing that David Montgomery can also do and do very well. And so you've got to really stop that. And I don't know if the Vikings
stay in your lanes, play your position. Hopefully they will. We'll see.
It's just weird how the Vikings can do that for good stretches of the game defensively, and then they stop doing it. I don't know whether it's the offense, adjust and we don't readjust, or we just don't have we just aren't good enough to sustain that for an entire 60-minute game. I don't know how you can look so good and then look so bad.
Drew points out with the Bears having one of the worst passing games, you think the Vikings would focus on the rush defense, right? Drew's funny. Yeah, of course they're not going to, Drew. You know how that simple works. It's funny. Oh, wait. Anyways, but we're going to have a test Monday night with these guys. Now, and as Raymond points out, prime time. Ooh, things don't always work well in prime time for the Vikings. And they don't always work well down in Chicago. Let's move on to, you had talked about Mike Zimmer. Our second point. What's he going to do versus that offense? I'm missing.
And mostly it's really a Zimmer versus Justin Fields matchup in this one, I believe, because
I forgot to load my Justin Fields. Oh well,
that's okay. I think we all know what Justin Fields looks like, but really, if you look at the basic stats for Fields, they're pretty poor across the board. He's completed less than 60% of his passes, which is very bad in the modern day NFL. Way more interceptions than passing touchdowns. He's holds on to the ball a lot in the pocket, which has led to some of the reason why some of those that high sack rate that the Bears have, the 42 sacks they've given up as a team. Some of those are on Fields for holding on to the ball too long. He gets confused by some of the coverages that the defenses are throwing against him. That I think should, if you look at it, you look at, okay, experienced defensive mind, Mike Zimmer versus a rookie QB in the past. That's been a pretty good matchup for the Vikings. So
Generally.
really, so really, you got to feel Mike Zimmer has got to be looking at ways, much like he did even in the Steelers game. I think he had Roethlisberger and the Steelers offense very confused about what they were going to do. Were they going to bring pressure? Were they not going to bring pressure? They got the mug. Are Baron Kendricks coming on the blitz? Are they not coming on the blitz? Is Harrison Smith coming on the blitz, or is he going to back away? That's a lot of the things that I think the Zimmer is going to throw at Justin Fields.
Yeah, where he's throwing 9 guys up there on the line and going, "Who are you blocking? Which one's coming?" Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of times, the Vikings backed off of that heavy pressure look, but still got pressure because, again, the offensive line was confused. A lot of times was confused about who to block, and we sent 4 guys, but sometimes we didn't send the 4 that the offensive line thought we were sending, right. Or we sent a different guy, 3 or 4 plays later than we'd sent in previous with similar looks. Those are the kind of things that you would expect that Zimmer will throw at Fields, especially if we get in some good passing situations. And he's got to win this battle because I think that this matchup, it's not going to get any easier. This is the kind of matchup that's about as easy as one that Zimmer could expect. Rookie QB struggles at times, makes some big turnover. Decision making is not always the best. That's something that a veteran defensive coordinator has got to take advantage of. The one thing that Fields does really well, though, is that he's much like Lamar Jackson. He's a phenomenal runner as a quarterback. Some of the runs he's had this year on scrambles have been, they're definitely highlight reel stuff. He can escape pressure and really hurt you with his scrambling ability, and he's got a big arm, so he can make the big throws on the run as well. He can hurt you with that, and he will hurt the Vikings at times with that. But I feel if they have a good rush plan, and Armand Watts talked about this in his media availability this week about how the Vikings are working on a good rush plan. He didn't get into specifics, but you can kind of figure out what's going to be done. Ends have got to, again, contain on the outside. Don't let Justin Fields break outside, and don't give him a whole lot of running lanes inside. Easier said than done, but they're going to try to do that, and then they'll blitz when the opportunity presents itself. But they have to win that battle, and they have to prevent Justin Fields from doing to us what Lamar Jackson did with us in the Baltimore game. Lamar Jackson did not have a very good game throwing the ball, but he ran for, 150 yards or something like that. And he did he escaped multiple sacks multiple times, and he just killed us on the run. And that's the thing that Fields can also do. And that's the thing that Mike Zimmer and
when we
the
played
Viking
Chicago
players
in
have
the
to feel.
past, it was Mitch Trubisky doing that thing.
That's right. And Trubisky is not a great quarterback as he is. Was certainly a much better passer, in the past 2 years than Fields is right now. So the Mike Zimmer versus Justin Fields, I don't want to call it a chess match because I don't know, that seems like a cliche, but it's really, this is a matchup that Mike Zimmer has to win, and he should win, and the Vikings defense should win.
If the Vikings want any chance to go to the into January football, they must win at least 3 out of these 4 games, and 2 of those should be against the Bears. So question is, will they? But that gets us to our next subject, Soldier Field. Soldier Field has always caused the Vikings problems for decades. It doesn't matter who. It happened under Denny Green. It happened under everybody except for Mike Tice, right? Mike Tice is like, what's wrong, people? I beat these guys. No, but it didn't cause Mike Tice problems because they had Devin Hess.
Not in Soldier Field, though. He beat him at home, but he didn't beat him in Soldier Field that often.
Because I still remember Tice wanting to rip Cluey's head off for kicking to Devin Hester after he told him, don't kick to him. Anyways, there's all sorts of things, but we're talking about Hester and punt returns. C-Wise and a few of the others have said we got to watch out for their special teams because they have some good special teams, as indicated by the special teams score.
Yeah.
Joseph with Bud Grant, it was great. Yeah, a different time period and different coach, different style of football. Yes, almost everything was much better with Bud Grant.
Indeed.
But this is
it's weird. It's weird to I don't know. It's weird to come up with a topic for a game and bring up the stadium, because the stadium has nothing to fucking do with how the game should really go. But for whatever reason, like you said, doesn't matter how good the Bears team is or how bad the Bears team is. Doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to matter what quarterback the Bears have. It doesn't seem to matter what players they roll out there. The Vikings always play flat. They come out flat. They play poorly. They turn the ball over. They struggle on offense and defense. On and on and on it goes. And I don't know why, but it just always happens. I wish that somebody would detonate a nuclear bomb on that goddamn stadium and get it out, because I don't want to see. I'll be very happy when the Bears move out to that stadium they're planning on building somewhere in the burbs in Illinois and get away from Soldier Field, because for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the outdoors, it's the crappy field conditions at Soldier Field that you get this time of the year.
But they finally put turf in there because the field. God, there were so many years where we'd go out there to play, and guys would come with torn up knees and everything else because the turf was horrible. But they got synthetic turf now versus grass.
It'll probably still be crappy just for this game. But I did. But the Vikings somehow, I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't have any strategy for this, but they have to come out and play a clean game. They have to come out and play smart football. They have to come out and establish. Earlier in the week, there was a question about should the actually Drew posed it on the Gallahorn site about how is the Vikings offense, how should they attack the Bears defense. Cook struggled in a lot of the games against the Bears. He's never had a good game at Soldier Field. Last year in the November game was about his best, but I should point out that in that game, it wasn't until Akeem Hicks got knocked out of the game for good midway through the second half that the Vikings really ran the ball effectively. And he's back this week, right? Maybe he'll get hurt again, but I really feel that if Cook does not have a good game, and I don't mean 200 plus yards, but kind of at least not getting not getting negative yardage, at least having some positive gains. It doesn't, even 3 or 4 yards on some carries would be good. If the Vikings can show that they can run, then I'll feel pretty good about their chances on offense to move the ball and score the amount of points that they're going to need to win this game. But if we really struggle running the ball, that's going to force us into a lot of obvious pass situations. The Bears get after their quarterback still pretty well, as we saw, 40 plus sacks. Now 14 of them are from Robert Quinn, but it's not all on him. They're still generating pressure from other guys as well, or they have been. And I don't want Kirk Cousins at Soldier Field on Monday night having to everything being on his shoulders because we cannot run the ball, because that usually doesn't turn out very well for the Vikings, and particularly won't turn out well if the Kirk Cousins who played Thursday night against the Steelers is the Kirk Cousins who plays Monday night against the Bears.
And we know he has a hard time with Monday nights. He's only won one his whole career. So, but if that offensive line plays like it did against the Steelers, Cook and Kene Nwangu in relief should have a good game.
Well, now will Nwangu be the backup, because the Vikings signed Wayne Gallman, and I know he's only been with the team is he? Yeah, because that was a bit of a question. Everybody was like, "Well, why are you signing Gallman?" But if Rose is out and Madison is out, you need somebody else, right? So Gallman's a body. He probably won't play, but I'm happy to see Nwangu as the backup. Let's see what he can do. We've been been kind of crying for him to play more, and apparently he's not picking up the offense very well, or that's kind of the rumor. But how are you going to pick it up if you don't play?
If you don't do it.
And he'll probably only like when Madison is backing up Cook.
I hope you're right, Drew.
Yeah, no, that's I saw that on Ted and Drew's show, and I thought that was a great take and a great call, because I think Wangu will get a third kickoff return this year. I don't know if it'll be against the Bears, but I'm feeling like he's going to take a third one to the house this year. I don't know when it's going to be.
That would help.
And if it's Monday night,
game.
Well, yeah, except for 0-2 in the games that Wangu's had a kickoff return touchdown. Lost to the Ravens and lost to the 49ers.
True.
Anyway, Soldier Field, never easy for the Vikings, and it would be really, really, really nice to see the Vikings actually play solidly. I feel if they play solidly, they kind of play like they did against the Chargers in LA, that they could win this game by, hey, hate to say it, but like 2 touchdowns or more, right? Like, especially when you see they don't have to, just don't screw everything up like you normally do at Soldier Field. Just play solidly. But that seems to be too much to ask for this team, especially this year and at Soldier Field almost every year. Even the last 3 times that we won, 2015, 2017, and last year, those games were like the Vikings really struggled to pull those ones out. You needed a miracle from Teddy Bridgewater to Chuck Johnson to set up a game-winning field goal for 2015. You had like the 2017 where Harrison Smith intercepted Trubisky deep in Chicago territory to set up a game-winning field goal. And last year we dominated the game completely on offense and defense, and we only won by 6 points.
Yeah,
brutal.
Well, hopefully we'll see a dominating game Monday. However, it's the 2021 season, so we know it'll go down to the last series of plays.
Of course.
Which I'm sure ESPN's loving. They'll love it. Hey, tune in. We got 2 minutes left. Bears trail by 3. Join us.
That's right.
But anyways, with that, let's wind this puppy up. Flip back to our main screen. Got any last thoughts going now into Monday night? Games at 7:15 Central. The other game will already be probably about halftime, because it starts, I think, at 5-ish, somewhere in there.
Yeah, so somewhere like that. So it'll be like halfway over by the time this game gets going. Yeah, I think this is usually the time where we throw in our predictions, and I am not bragging, but I guess I am bragging. But I'm like 3-0 in my predictions the last 3 weeks.
Cool, keep it up.
So I'm on. Well, except that my prediction 2 weeks ago was the Vikings would lose, and they did lose. I prefer to be wrong when I predict the Vikings lose. And on this one, really, we talked a bit about the Soldier Field thing, Dave, but I really feel like the script for these Vikings Bears games at Soldier Field, it seems to be always the same, and I'm not expecting it to be a whole lot different. Here's how it's going to go. Vikings will struggle on offense, struggle to generate any offense the first 2-3 quarters. Justin Fields will have his best passing game as a pro against the Vikings somehow. He'll also run around and create a whole bunch of big plays with his legs that will drive us mad. The Vikings will commit a couple of mind-numbing turnovers. The game will somehow be somewhat close going into the fourth. The Vikings will then rack up a bunch of meaningless yards and points to make the game look closer than it actually is, and the Vikings will lose 23-13.
Whoa! Okay.
At Soldier Field. Only to win. Then next week they'll beat the Rams at home. The other thing is
they got to win at least 3 out of 4 if they want a chance to play.
They do, but I think that what's going to happen is they're going to finish 2-2 and go 8-9. They're going to beat the Bears at home. the last game of the year, and they're going to beat the Rams, but they're going to lose to the Packers, and they're going to lose to the Bears here. That's how I'm seeing it.
Drew's giving you shit about your blank white wall.
Oh yeah, well, I'll take it.
Drew's got a very high-scoring affair. Vikings winning 8-5. Obviously giving up a safety in that one, but could be. Darren, you picked the Bears. I've got to go opposite. I've got to pick the Vikes. Even as things sit now. There was word out of Chicago that half the team has basically given up. Half the locker room is saying, screw it. We're planning our golf trips. We're packing it. We're going to tank. With that, Nagy already knows he's going to be fired, just like Mike Zimmer. But at least the players are playing for Zimmer. They're not playing. If half the team isn't playing for Nagy, things can't go well. You've got a third of the team out due to COVID. Wide receivers are out. I just cannot see the Vikings blowing this one. If they do, it will be an epic failure. Absolutely one of the worst of Mike Zimmer's career, and that's saying something. So I've got to go Minnesota winning probably, hey, they've been scoring 30 points. So let's go, say, 31-14 over the Bears.
That'd be lovely. At this point, I'll point out that the Vikings lost to a winless team.
Oh, yeah.
2 weeks ago.
Trust me. Yeah. Detroit Lions. But at that time, Detroit didn't have a third of their team out for COVID. So.
Yeah, true. But even that Detroit team, even at full strength, I don't know if you'd say was any better than this Bears team with half the guys out with COVID.
It may or may not. But it's the Vikings. It's 2021. We look forward to new beginnings next season. But this season isn't over yet. The Vikings, theoretically, mathematically, the Vikings go 4-0. And cheese whizzes across the border go 0-4. We could win the division.
Come on, Dave.
That's why I wore this. Division champions. There you go, Drew.
Let's not talk fairy tales here, okay? Let's get real.
Mathematically possible. I didn't say it was going to happen. I just said it's mathematically possible.
Okay.
With that,
thanks for pointing that detail
out. We're a week away from Christmas. Football will not stop for Christmas. We'll be here, I think, most of the week. I don't know what shows are coming up, everybody. I know last week I promised a full slate. We started out at the beginning of the week, and everybody said they were going to have them, and then we had shows fall off 1, 2, 3. Or 1 and 2. Monday shows was there. Tuesday, Wednesday dropped, and we had Thursday. This week, however, I do know Monday, we are planning on 2 shows Monday night. During halftime, you'll get Climb in the Pocket, CTP, Mondays. They're going to do a halftime update. You'll get the guys there. And then at the end of the game, at the 2-minute mark, we will go live with the final score late on Monday evening. I'm sure most of us will be quite lubricated from the inside with a little bit of a holiday spirit, shall we say. And it should be a good show. Whichever way the game goes, we're either yelling and screaming or we're yelling and screaming, one or the other. So it should be fun. Join us Monday during and after the game for your next show. What do we say, Darren?
We always say Skol, baby. Skol Vikings.
Skol Vikings! I want to thank everybody for showing up.
With a little bit more life. Yes, thanks everybody. Had good participation and a lot of people watching, so that's always nice.
Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. Skol, everybody.